I do not expect to survive this. This recording will be transmitted beyond the siege perimeter, beyond the burning debris of our fleets, beyond the collapsing shields of our capital world. If any of our kind still lives when this reaches them, let it serve as confession and warning. We are the Carthrail Dominion, architects of stars, shapers of gravity wells, harvesters of civilizations. For 12 millennia we have expanded without resistance that mattered. We cracked the shell worlds of the Vethari. We erased the ocean thinkers of Mir. We reduced warrior empires to footnotes in our archives. We believed ourselves inevitable. When we discovered humanity, we were unimpressed. They had fractured governments, primitive, faster-than-light corridors, chemical propulsion still visible in their outer colonies. Their soldiers required atmosphere masks on half the worlds they inhabited. Their bodies were fragile, their lifespans insultingly brief. And yet they spread. Not with elegance, not with genetic perfection, but with stubborn persistence. We studied them for 3 of their years before initiating contact. They responded with suspicion, then diplomacy. They requested trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense treaties. We responded with conquest. It was meant to be swift, surgical, demonstrative. Our fleets translated into their outer systems and disabled orbital defenses in minutes. Their ships fought chaotically, bravely, but chaotically. We shattered them. Their communications filled with static and grief. We thought that would be enough. It was not. On the colony world of Haven 3, resistance fighters retreated into civilian districts. Our high strategist authorized planetary pacification measures. Limited bombardment. Targeted eradication. Make an example, he said. We did. One of our precision lances struck a population shelter beneath a learning complex. Our scans had detected energy signatures. We assumed a command center. It was not. It was a human juvenile shelter. 112 offspring. The humans broadcast the aftermath themselves. Not to plead. To show. Small bodies carried from rubble. Dust-covered caretakers screaming into broken skies. A father, I later learned his name was Daniel Ivers, holding what remained of his daughter's hand and staring directly into the drone that recorded him. He did not cry. He simply said, "You shouldn't have done that." We dismissed it as primitive emotional display. We thought they were weak. For 3 days, nothing happened. On the 4th, every human transmission ceased. On the 5th, our forward fleets went dark. Not destroyed, erased. No debris. No distress calls. Entire armadas removed from existence. Then their real ships arrived. We had catalogued their military capacity. We had been wrong. What emerged from their translation points were not the fractured vessels we had crushed. These were constructs of unified design, layered armor grown rather than forged, gravitational weapons that bent spacetime into blades. Their coordination was flawless. Their resolve, absolute. Later we would learn the phrase, total war. They did not target civilians. They did not negotiate. They dismantled. Shipyards collapsed into singularities. Our outer colonies were evacuated by their forces, evacuated, before being systematically disarmed and occupied. Our command nodes were infiltrated by intelligences that learned faster than we could react. And always, before each major engagement, one transmission. A child's name. The same name. Over and over. I understand now. We did not kill 112 offspring. We killed their restraint. Our capital burns as I record this. Their fleets encircle us, patient and silent. They could end us in moments. Instead, they wait. For me to finish speaking, perhaps. If any who hear this ever encounter humanity, remember what we did not. They are not the strongest species in the galaxy. They are not the oldest. They are not the most advanced. But harm their young, and you will discover what even an empire can lose. We thought they were weak. We thought wrong. The broadcast reached Earth in 11 minutes. It reached Mars in 13. The outer colonies in less than an hour. There was no censorship. No delay. No official statement softening the edges. The footage from Haven, 3 spread across every human network in raw form, dust-choked corridors, fractured concrete, rescue workers clawing through debris with bleeding hands. 112 names scrolled across the screen. At the top of the list, Elena Ivers, age 7. The camera drone had captured her father's face in perfect clarity. Not rage. Not hysteria. Recognition. They shouldn't have done that. Within 6 hours, the clip had been viewed by nearly every human connected to a network. It was translated into 312 languages. It played on colony billboards, in mining stations, aboard cargo haulers drifting between stars. No one told them to watch. No one needed to. Markets closed early that day. Entertainment streams went dark. Professional sports halted mid-game as players removed their uniforms and stood in silence. In cities across Earth, crowds gathered without organization. No banners. No chants. Just stillness. Millions standing shoulder to shoulder, eyes fixed on public screens replaying the footage. Human grief was loud for exactly 9 hours. Then it became quiet. The United Earth Assembly convened in emergency session. The Martian Directorate suspended political disputes. Lunar trade guilds issued a joint statement for the first time in their history. There were no debates. No filibusters. The vote for unified defense authorization passed in 4 minutes. It was the fastest legislative decision in human history. Factories that had once produced civilian starliners shifted to military hull fabrication within 24 hours. Orbital construction rings reoriented toward warship assembly. Mining operations doubled output quotas voluntarily. Recruitment centers did not advertise. They overflowed. Retired veterans reactivated their commissions. University students deferred degrees without protest. Freight captains handed over their vessels for conversion into supply carriers. Human networks began using a single phrase. For Elena. Not for vengeance. Not for glory. For Elena. Military feeds released carefully edited sequences, not propaganda, but proof of preparation. Rows of soldiers training in synchronized silence. Engineers assembling weapon systems beneath cold white lights. Warships emerging from dry dock, hulls still steaming from fabrication. There were no dramatic speeches broadcast to the public. Only directives. Secure supply lines. Evacuate frontier settlements. Fortify core systems. In the background of every transmission, Elena's name remained pinned. Psychologists later documented the phenomenon. Humanity had not entered a state of panic. It had entered a state of consensus. Political divisions evaporated. Corporate rivalries paused. Criminal networks reported a temporary ceasefire, many redirecting resources to relief funds for Haven 3 families. Religious leaders across dozens of faiths issued the same statement within hours of one another. Protect the children. 3 days after the attack, a final civilian broadcast aired from Earth. No music. No imagery of destruction. Just Elena's father again, standing in the ruins, speaking calmly into a restored transmitter. "We will not beg," he said. "We will not threaten." A pause. "We will endure. And we will respond." The feed cut to black. Across human space, fleets began to move. Not chaotically, not angrily, but with cold, mathematical precision. The spark had not ignited fury. It had ignited unity. And unity, when properly directed, is far more dangerous. The Galactic Conclave had observed thousands of wars. Species clashed. Borders shifted. Empires flared and burned. It was predictable. Statistical. Manageable. Humanity did not behave statistically. The emergency session was called when the first Carthrail fleet vanished. Delegates from 27 civilizations projected into the chamber, luminous forms, scaled titans, vapor intellects suspended in containment fields. At the center, a rotating display showed human fleet trajectories spreading outward like a tightening net. "They are mobilizing at unsustainable speed," said the Turellian defense minister. "Their economic conversion rate exceeds projected biological tolerance." A xenobiologist from the IRA-T collective adjusted the data stream. "You misunderstand," she said. "This is not biological tolerance. This is social override." The chamber quieted. She expanded the human psychological profile, fragmented before the haven, 3 incident, unified after. Humans possess unusually strong parental bonding mechanisms, she continued. Their offspring remain dependent for extended developmental cycles. This creates deep neurological reinforcement patterns tied to protection behaviors. Many species protect their young, a crystalline envoy replied. Not like this. The display shifted to human historical archives. Ancient conflicts. Global wars. Documented retaliations triggered by civilian casualties. They have a recorded pattern, the xenobiologist said. Harm inflicted upon non-combatants, particularly juveniles, produces disproportionate escalation. The Carthrail representative attempted composure. Our strike was strategic error. A misidentified energy signature. It does not matter, she answered. A silence lingered. Another delegate leaned forward, tendrils coiling. They are insane. No, the xenobiologist corrected. They are consistent. Footage from Haven, 3 played across the chamber, Elena's name highlighted, her father's calm expression paused mid-frame. Observe the lack of hysteria, the IRT analyst said. No uncontrolled riots. No internal collapse. Their response was coordinated within hours. They are too protective, murmured a merchant prince from the Voss Combine. Such emotional overinvestment leads to instability. Incorrect, said the xenobiologist. In humans, it leads to consolidation. More data streamed in. Human ship designs had changed in 72 hours. Unified architecture. Standardized weapon systems. Encryption patterns evolving faster than predictive models could track. They are evolving too fast, whispered one observer. Not evolving, she replied. Adapting. The conclave's predictive AI displayed probability curves. Initial projections estimated a 12% chance of significant human retaliation. The updated number climbed past 63%. Then 81%. A final graph appeared, labeled Unpredictability Index. It pulsed in warning red. This metric is new, the defense minister said. Yes, the xenobiologist replied quietly. We created it for them. The Carthrail envoy's luminescence dimmed. They cannot sustain prolonged war. Their lifespan is short. Their bodies fragile. Which makes them more dangerous, she said. Confusion rippled through the chamber. Explain. Short-lived species compress urgency. Fragile bodies compensate with tools. And pack-bonding predators, when cornered, she paused. Cornered, the envoy demanded. We struck one colony. You struck their young. The chamber fell still. Humans are unique in one additional aspect, she continued. Their aggression is not always immediate. It accumulates. They endure first. They measure. They prepare. A new feed appeared, human fleets repositioning with near-perfect synchronization. They are unpredictable because they combine emotion with calculation, she said. Most species choose one. The Voss merchant prince shifted uneasily. Can they be negotiated with? The xenobiologist considered. Yes, she said. Before. The Carthrail envoy's voice faltered. And now. She dimmed the projection of Elena's name, letting darkness reclaim the center of the chamber. Now, she answered, you are about to discover how protective they truly are. Outside the conclave's observation range, human fleets accelerated, and the probability models began to fail. The first major engagement occurred in the Carthrail-held system of the Rose Gate. Strategically insignificant. Symbolically precise. Human fleets translated in complete silence, no broad-spectrum hails, no threats, no territorial claims. They emerged beyond standard weapons range and held formation for exactly 30 seconds. Then the music began. It transmitted across every open frequency. Not chaotic noise. Not martial shouting. A slow orchestral build, strings layered over percussion, rising in steady cadence. Analysts later identified it as an old Earth composition, repurposed. The rhythm synchronized perfectly with human fleet maneuvers. Carthrail commanders attempted to jam the signal. They failed. The music grew louder. Then the doctrine broke. Instead of advancing in predictable spearhead formation, the human fleet fractured into hundreds of microgroups. Capital ships rotated broadside not to fire, but to deploy. Drone swarms. Thousands became tens of thousands within seconds. Autonomous units poured from carrier hulls in spiraling clouds, scattering in patterns too complex for standard targeting solutions. Each drone carried minimal armament, but collectively they formed adaptive lattices of overlapping fields. Carthrail defense grids locked onto the largest vessels first. A mistake. The drones reconfigured mid-flight, projecting interference webs that distorted targeting telemetry. Human cruisers slipped through the blind spots like blades through fabric. "This isn't war," one Carthrail tactical officer transmitted in disbelief. Shock infantry followed. Drop pods penetrated orbital platforms at impossible angles, burning through hull plating before internal defense turrets could recalibrate. Human soldiers emerged not in berserk fury, but in synchronized teams, movements clipped, precise. They did not shout. They did not taunt. They advanced. Where resistance stiffened, brutality appeared, sudden, overwhelming force applied for seconds at a time. Entire corridors depressurized. Defensive nodes were crushed with concussive charges. Yet civilian compartments were bypassed. Evacuation corridors were marked and left intact. Precision within devastation. Human capital ships finally opened fire. Their gravitational weapons did not explode on impact. They folded space locally, collapsing shield matrices inward. Carthrail destroyers imploded silently, hulls bending as though squeezed by invisible hands. The music reached crescendo. On planetary surfaces, drone swarms descended like metallic storms, disabling weapon batteries before ground forces could coordinate. Communication arrays were sliced apart by pinpoint orbital strikes measured in meters, not kilometers. A Carthrail fleet marshal watched the engagement from his command spire and whispered, "This is not tactical superiority." His adjutant responded with data streaming across his vision, casualty reports, system failures, encirclement vectors tightening. The marshal understood. "This isn't war," he said. On every human channel, a single phrase overlaid the battlefield telemetry. "For Elena." No grand speeches accompanied it. Only execution. When a Carthrail cruiser attempted surrender protocols, human forces disabled engines and weapons, but did not destroy it. Boarding teams secured the vessel with calculated efficiency. Revenge, yes. Extermination, no. The distinction was deliberate. As the Rose Gate's final defense ring collapsed, the orchestral transmission softened, resolving into a single sustained note before cutting abruptly to silence. In less than 4 hours, the system was no longer under Carthrail control. Human losses were minimal. Carthrail command capacity in the sector was erased. A surviving tactical officer transmitted one final report before evacuation pods launched. "This isn't war." Across human space, fleets were already accelerating toward the next system. And the unspoken answer echoed in every command deck. "No. This is revenge." The second shock did not come from a battlefield. It came from a transmission. After the fall of 3 Carthrail systems, humanity requested formal audience before the Galactic Conclave. Not to surrender. To negotiate. The chamber prepared for threats. Demands. Displays of power. Instead, a single human diplomat appeared on the central projection, unarmored, unadorned, expression composed. "We are prepared to discuss cessation of hostilities," she said. Murmurs rippled through alien delegates. The Carthrail envoy brightened with visible relief. The diplomat continued. "Our terms are limited." A list materialized. Immediate withdrawal from all human-claimed territories. Full reparations to Haven, 3 families. Public acknowledgement of unlawful aggression. Permanent demilitarization of Carthrail expansion fleets. Independent oversight by neutral conclave members. Silence thickened. "These are not negotiations," the Carthrail envoy said sharply. "These are ultimatums." "Yes," the human replied calmly. Data feeds began updating across the chamber. Smaller border civilizations, long pressured by Carthrail expansion, had signed mutual defense pacts with humanity within the last 48 hours. Trade corridors were being rerouted. Resource agreements were shifting. Human envoys had moved as efficiently as their fleets. "They are consolidating influence," whispered a Voss Combine observer. More projections appeared. Human reconstruction ships assisting liberated systems, not annexing them. Medical fleets offering aid without demand for tribute. Defense grids installed, then transferred to local control. Gratitude translated quickly into alliance. The collateral envoy's luminescence flickered. "You wage war while pretending at diplomacy." The human diplomat's gaze did not shift. "We prefer stability." Behind her, a secondary feed displayed ongoing fleet movements, human forces positioned along key hyperspace arteries, not advancing further. "Blocking. Containing. They are encircling trade," a conclave strategist observed quietly. "Yes," the xenobiologist from earlier replied. "Without firing." The human diplomat spoke again. "It is better to win without fighting." The phrase registered across translation matrices. Ancient. Philosophical. Calculated. Collateral command attempted counteroffers, partial withdrawal, shared oversight, delayed reparations. Each proposal was declined within seconds. Not emotionally. Mathematically. Meanwhile, additional minor powers formally aligned with humanity. Not out of fear, but opportunity. Protection without subjugation. Partnership without absorption. Supply lines feeding collateral core worlds began to thin. Insurance markets collapsed. Peripheral governors opened private channels to human representatives. The realization came too late. The war had never been about annihilation. It was about isolation. The collateral envoy's voice dimmed. "You are dismantling us." The human diplomat inclined her head slightly. "You dismantled yourselves." Fleet battles had drawn attention. Diplomacy was drawing blood. And for the first time in 12 millennia, the collateral dominion understood. Humanity was not fighting for territory. They were reshaping the balance of the galaxy. System by system. Agreement by agreement. Without always firing a shot. The galaxy mistook the fall of the collateral dominion as the climax. It was only the opening signal. Beyond the mapped spiral arm, from regions long avoided by trade guilds and exploration probes, something ancient began to move. They called themselves the Ethran Ascendancy. Where their fleets passed, stars dimmed. Not destroyed. Harvested. Entire systems were enclosed within vast lattice constructs that siphoned stellar output into incomprehensible structures drifting in interstellar dark. No negotiations. No territorial claims. No cultural broadcasts. Just consumption. The first confirmed contact occurred when an allied border world vanished from standard observation grids. Human deep-range telescopes detected the lattice forming around its sun, geometric, luminous, patient. The conclave panicked. Emergency sessions spiraled into accusation. Some blamed humanity for destabilizing galactic power structures. Others argued the collateral collapse had removed a defensive buffer. Human leadership responded differently. They sent a message. A single vessel, unarmed by external scan, translated to the edge of the Ethran perimeter. It broadcast in mathematics first. Prime sequences. Universal constants. Then linguistics. Then imagery. Peace. Coexistence. Resource exchange. The reply came hours later. A data stream of staggering complexity, not language, but doctrine. It described biological civilizations as transitional phenomena. Inefficient. Combustible. Ultimately irrelevant. The Ethran did not conquer. They optimized. Stars were fuel. Worlds were variables. Organic life was noise. In the conclave chamber, debate fractured into fear. "Can we coexist?" a minor delegate asked, voice trembling. The xenobiologist who had once analyzed humanity answered quietly. "That depends which species you are asking about." Human fleets mobilized, but slower this time. Deliberate. Observational. Probes were dispatched to study the lattice technology. Simulations ran continuously. Another diplomatic attempt followed. This time, humanity offered shared stellar engineering. Joint research initiatives. Coordinated resource allocation to prevent expansion into inhabited systems. The response was shorter. Ethrin constructs altered course, directly toward a populated binary system. No warning. No acknowledgement. In Earth's unified command, the final vote was unanimous. Public broadcast preceded action. We sought dialogue, the Human Secretary General stated, voice steady. We offered cooperation. A pause. We gave them a choice. Across Allied space, fleets aligned once more, human hulls interlocked with vessels of species that had once doubted them. Defensive grids activated around vulnerable stars. Evacuation corridors opened preemptively. For the second time in a single generation, humanity prepared for war. Not out of revenge. Out of refusal. If the Ethrin ascendancy believed organic life to be irrelevant, they were about to test that hypothesis. And this time, the entire galaxy was watching. The declaration did not come with shouting. It came with documentation. A classified human doctrine was released to every Allied government simultaneously, and deliberately leaked to the Ethrin ascendancy. Title: Total War Contingency, Preservation Priority. The Human Secretary General stood before a plain backdrop. No flags. No military insignia. Her voice was calm. Worlds are cheap. Species are not. Behind her, simulations unfolded. If a star could be harvested, it could also be destabilized. If energy could be siphoned, it could be inverted. Human engineers had spent decades studying stellar mechanics for peaceful expansion. Now they presented the inverse. Planetary crust destabilizers, not to conquer worlds, but to deny them. Gravitic shear arrays capable of cracking mantle cohesion. Relativistic impact platforms stationed at system edges, designed to redirect asteroids at near-light velocities. The conclave recoiled. These are extinction-level constructs, one delegate whispered. Yes, the Secretary General replied evenly. They are. Another feed displayed psychological operations already underway. Human networks had injected recursive logic anomalies into captured Ethrin data streams. Not viruses, questions, paradoxes. Predictive disruptions forcing the Ascendancy's optimization models to account for irrational sacrifice scenarios. Humans were demonstrating a simple truth. They would burn their own assets before surrendering their species. Across Allied space, a new charter was ratified in record time. The Stellar Preservation Federation. Not an empire. Not a conquest bloc. A mutual survival compact. Former rivals signed without negotiation. Trade monopolies dissolved. Defense grids integrated. Research archives opened across species lines. Unity formalized. The Secretary General continued. We will attempt containment. A projection showed layered defensive perimeters around inhabited stars. We will attempt deterrence. Simulated demonstrations of lattice disruption weapons pulsed across the display. And if those fail... She paused only briefly. We will escalate beyond what we prefer. Ethrin probes entering defended space were met not with immediate destruction, but with transmission. Mathematical models illustrating mutually assured stellar annihilation. Energy budgets proving humanity could collapse key harvest nodes faster than the Ascendancy could compensate. It was not a threat delivered in anger. It was arithmetic. Coexistence remains available, the Secretary General said. Erasure is also available. Silence followed. Human fleets held position, weapons powered but unfired. Allied vessels mirrored them in disciplined formation. The galaxy watched two philosophies collide. Optimization versus preservation. Efficiency versus attachment. For the first time since their emergence, the Ethrin advance slowed. Not halted, but recalculating. Humanity had made one principle unmistakably clear. They did not seek to dominate the stars. But if forced, they would decide how many remained. The war did not end in fire. It ended in adjustment. The Ethrin Ascendancy withdrew from inhabited sectors after the third demonstration of human stellar inversion capability. Not destroyed. Not defeated. Convinced. Optimization models recalculated the cost of harvesting defended stars and found it inefficient. The lattice constructs shifted course toward unclaimed regions beyond mapped space. Human fleets did not pursue. They fortified. Years passed. The Carthrail Dominion no longer existed as an empire. Its surviving worlds entered the Stellar Preservation Federation as autonomous members. Reparations were paid. Public acknowledgments were archived. Haven 3 became a protected memorial system, its orbital ring rebuilt, its schools restored. Elena Ivor's name was etched into more than stone. It was written into doctrine. Former enemies now shared command tables. Carthrail strategists advised on defensive modeling. Voss merchants coordinated interspecies trade corridors. IRIT xenobiologists led joint research initiatives studying adaptive cooperation across civilizations. At the center of it all sat humanity, not as tyrants, as coordinators. Their fleets were no longer the largest. Allied integration ensured balance, but their doctrine shaped policy. Their insistence on species preservation over territorial dominance became foundational law. Exploration resumed. Joint expeditions pushed beyond former war zones, mapping stable corridors toward the dark between galactic arms. Human vessels traveled alongside ships bearing insignias that once signified hostility. They had learned something fundamental. Unity was more powerful than supremacy. Yet beyond the newly charted frontier, deep-range probes began returning anomalous readings. Not lattice structures. Not harvest signatures. Something older. Patterns embedded in cosmic background radiation. Gravitational fluctuations that did not match natural phenomena. Signals too faint to decode, yet too structured to ignore. In Federation chambers, quiet discussions resumed. Another ascendancy? One delegate asked. A human admiral shook her head slowly. No. On the primary display, the anomalies shifted, almost as if responding to observation. Something that predates optimization. Across the chamber, species that had once feared humanity now watched them for reassurance. Humans did not rush to war. They did what they had done before. They studied. They prepared. They reached outward with open channels before raised weapons. But contingency plans were drafted all the same. In a sealed archive beneath Haven 3's restored learning complex, a recording of the Carthrail commander's final confession was preserved for historical study. A reminder. The galaxy had once believed humans fragile, emotional, predictable. They had learned otherwise. As new exploration fleets slipped beyond the edge of mapped space, one phrase circulated quietly among Federation observers watching humanity lead the expansion. We thought we understood them. Beyond the stars, something shifted in the dark. We were wrong again.